Hi everybody, welcome to yet another video. So today we're having a little play with the Iwata LPH400. That's with the LVX cap, which is the normally referred to as the orange cap, and we're picking that up against a Chinese gun, but it's a quality Chinese gun. I've only recently found this manufacturer, been able to get hold of these guns. This one I got about 7 months ago, but it's the Porphis WP99V. Now, the reason I put these two guns against each other is that they both use a 4-split tip. So in my mind, they should be similar. They're quite different in that one's twice the price of the other. You know, no medals for guessing, but the Iwata actually is quite expensive. The Porphis, they haven't actually got it on their website. I'll put a link in the description because there's a few contact details you can get hold of people, but they've actually got a retail website now where you can get hold of these things, and these aren't actually on there at the moment, but they will be going on there because these are classed as their industrial range. And if you look at their website, it's got something like industrial range coming soon. So if you go to their normal website, you can see their industrial range. It's just that it's not priced up for retail on their relatively new retail website. It's only been out about 2-3 weeks, I think. It certainly makes it easier because people will be able to see the price and get a delivery charge and know whether they actually want it or not. So this isn't actually on there at the moment, but it should be on there. Should be on there soon, hopefully. But it depends. It still depends where you are. But I'm thinking these will probably be about 240, 250 US dollars all in. Maybe a bit less. As I say, it depends where you are. I think people in the US, if it's under 800 US dollars, they don't actually pay any import fees. I don't really know. I'm based in the UK, so we do have to pay duty, and I had to pay some duty on these when I got these. But anyway, it's definitely, these things are half the price at least of the LPH400. Now, one of the things with the Porphis guns that I was a little bit hesitant about when I first got them, they look very well made. They look as well made, certainly as well made as the Iwata. It's a side cup gun. The Porphis gun in this is a side cup gun, so if you're very anti side cup, for you this comparison will probably mean absolutely nothing. Because you wouldn't be interested in it anyway. But certainly if you don't mind a side cup, and I don't mind a side cup whatsoever, in fact a lot of the time I prefer one, then certainly stick around, because the difference between these two guns is in performance is zero. The pattern is slightly different. You'll see as we go along, but the pattern on the LVX is slightly different. It's not quite as big as the WP99. And the WP99 has quite a big eye pattern, which does lend itself, I think, better to things like base coats and better quality clear coats as well. I think can work quite well with an eye pattern. But one of the things you buy these guns for, both of these guns, is the fact that they have a split tip, because it's becoming increasingly obvious to me that when you get a gun with a split tip, it does atomize finer, whether you're using it for base coat or for clear coat. It definitely does something. Another thing that it does, which I've mentioned on quite a few occasions, is it does slow the guns down. I know a lot of people in the US, I mention the US quite a bit because the LPH400 is normally sold in the US. You can get certain versions of it in Europe, although in the UK we've got absolutely nothing. You can get the silver cap version, which is the LV, so it's the LPH400 LV, and the cap has a silver bezel on it. But in the US, you can get the LVB, which is a purple one, the LVX, which is the one we're using here, which is generally regarded as probably the most fiery. It certainly has bigger air holes in it than the other two caps, as far as I know. I've never physically had an LVB cap in my hand. The LV is the same version as they use on the wider 4L. The bezel is actually different, so they won't interchange, but the actual cap is as far as I can see exactly the same. But whichever cap you use, you will find that these guns are generally slower, and as I said, the same goes for the WP99. They're generally slower than the equivalent with a non-split tip. So what you end up getting with them, in my opinion, is finer atomization and slower application. Often they will use more air. In the case of the WVX cap that we're using here, the air holes in that are actually quite big. That is effectively, as I said before, I think a W400 WBX cap, which does use quite a lot of air, although that's designed to be used at around about 2 bar. On the LVX cap, it has written on it 16 psi, which is 1.1 bar, and I know a lot of people don't use them at that pressure. The pressure that most people seem to run these at is around about 26 psi, which is about 1.8 bar, 1.85 bar, something like that. And that is what I used in this test. The pattern doesn't split at that sort of pressure. Normally, if you've got a spray gun and you get a pattern, if you're using too much pressure for that gun, for the material you're using, you'll get a problem with the pattern, and normally that will manifest itself as too much at the top, too much at the bottom, and drier in the middle. But it can also manifest itself as too much at the bottom or too much at the top. Normally at the bottom, but it depends where the exit holes are of the actual gun body. Most of them are towards the top, but it depends if there's a distribution baffle in there as well. It can even that out. But normally, if you're getting too much top heavy, too much bottom heavy, or top and bottom heavy with a drier pattern, you've got too much pressure going through that gun for that material. The thicker the viscosity of the material, so the thicker the material is, the more that pattern will close up given the same pressure. So with these guns, although it says 16 psi, 1.1 bar, I think that's just to get around emissions in certain areas, as I say, particularly in the US, and I think California is very strict. I think that's to get around the emission laws, that they put that on the cap. But I know a lot of people don't run them at that sort of pressure. With the WP99, it had no fuss. It didn't mind what it was used at. I've used this down to 1.2 bar, which is about 21 psi, something like that, and I've used it at 2 bar, which is 29 psi. For this test, I kept it the same, or more or less the same, about 27 psi, 1.9 bar, more or less the same as the LPH400 that we're pitting this against, and it was perfectly happy at that pressure. One of the things I did notice between these two, which is quite a big difference, particularly to people with limited air supply, is the LPH400. Both these are actually rated around about the same. In fact, the Porphis is quoted at about 13 CFM or requiring 13 CFM, but that's going to be at 2 bar, whereas the Iwata is about, I think it's classed as probably 12 CFM, 11.5 CFM, but that's going to be at 1.1 bar, so 16 psi, because when you start to use this thing at the pressure I was using it for this test, which is the pressure a lot of people use it at, you know, 26, 27 psi, 1.8, 1.9 bar. You really notice it does use quite a lot of air, and that's simply because there's big air holes in there, in that cap. And once you start putting that pressure up, you are going to increase the air consumption. So certainly a winner on air consumption would be the Porphis. As I say, it will run happily down to 1.2 bar. I've used it at for clear coat. Works absolutely fine. Works just as well for base coat at that sort of pressure, but you can normally use less pressure for base coat than clear coat anyway, and that's the case with all these guns and other guns as well. I normally work, you know, at least 0.2 to 0.3 of a bar less, so you know, 5 psi less for base coat. It does depend which gun it is, but certainly you'll normally get away with less for base coat than you need for clear coat. So yeah, it's worth remembering that if you are tight on air, or you've got a lot to do, so it's going to put your equipment under pressure, then the Porphis, for what I'm saying, to me gave just as good results. I couldn't really split these two as far as the quality of finish goes. Both of them give a really, really good finish, but the Porphis definitely uses less air. I know another thing people do in the US with the LPH400 is they actually fit a 3-prong tip. So a tip out of the WBX and use that, but or WB is the same tip. The WB and the WBX, W400 WB and W400 WBX use exactly the same tip, and they're interchangeable obviously with the LPH400 because it's the same body. It's just a different model number and a different tip normally because of the 4 splits, but the 3 splits actually speeds it up slightly, which a lot of people are after, because obviously turning the pressure up will speed it up, as long as I was saying before, that fan actually keeps itself together. Another thing you'll also find with these split tip guns is they actually normally use less material. It's difficult to say exactly. I normally do bike stuff. I keep these panels for little shootouts because I really do enjoy pitting one gun against another. But both of these use less materials than your typical, for example, your Balearia in the case of you know, a normal W400 Balearia. I haven't got anything to compare it. Well, okay, I mean the Porphis PRD 715 uses more material than the WP99, but they're also much faster, and it's just just a different experience. The whole thing is a different experience. It's more about probably production painting, you know, getting the stuff on and getting it out, rather than a finer finish. That's how I mean, I don't do cars, you see, so or very rarely do anything to do with cars, but that's how it would come across to me, that if you had a busy production shop, you can get really good results with the you know, let's say the W400 Balearia, and it's much faster, and you can just get the job done. Whereas you would be chomping at the bit using either of these two, because they're just slower. But if you're somebody that does you know, one-off stuff, special stuff, I would certainly recommend both of these guns, because you know, they are really good. I mean, the LPH400 has been out for years and years and years. It must be due for a change. The wider 4L is supposed to be the newer version of it, but it's only available with one cap at the moment, which is what I was saying before. It's the equivalent cap to the LV, the silver rimmed cap. I've done back-to-backs with them, and the pattern is slightly different, as you'll see when we actually did the spray out. When you see in a second, you'll see it just on the right hand side. You'll see the difference between the two patterns, and the normally when you look at the LVX cap, it seems like quite a big eye pattern, but when you look at it against the WP99, it's definitely got a longer, thinner pattern. So again, if you like a longer, thinner pattern, the WP99 may well be a better bet for you, or a different cap. I know the LV cap is quite similar pattern wise to the LVX. I've never tried an LVB, so maybe that's more of an eye pattern. And I think it depends on the tips as well, because they're different. LPH400 go into different areas, and the actual holes in the tip are different. The diameter of the holes in the tip are different. I've actually got a little inserter now that I can put into holes, and it can measure the diameter reasonably accurately, you know, of the smaller holes. So I'll be using that in some of the other videos just to see what the differences are. But another thing I was going to say, with the WP99 and all the Porphis guns that I've had, I've been getting a few recently, but the first ones I got now, which this is one of them, I got about 7 or actually 8 months ago. I got them in August 2023, and at the time I think I said to people that, you know, they seem very well made, but I'm not sure about longevity, how long they will actually last. And I'm actually losing the no, not the will to live. I'm actually losing my trepidation about that, because as I've been using them and cleaning them in the normal way and doing everything as normal, they haven't let me down at all, which, you know, they're new guns, you wouldn't expect that, but they're just proving to be solid and reliable, just like any other gun. Now I know only time will tell, but as I say, you know, I'm starting with a lot of the cheaper Chinese guns you get. I've already had things failing after, you know, stripping them down, cleaning them, using them 10 times. You start to get things not sealing properly, and, you know, bubbles coming up in the pots because the tip's not sealing properly. None of that with any of these. So I'm losing my trepidation about how reliable they'll be. And you can get parts from them. If you need to get parts, you can get parts for them. So yeah, generally I'm feeling much more at home with these things and getting to enjoy them. And you know, I think for what they are, they're actually really, really good. Well, here's the final results anyway. I tried to get as close as I can, but you can see both of them give you virtually zero orange peel, if that's what you want, as zero as you can get with a spray gun. And I couldn't split the two. I was looking and looking. Both of them did exactly the same, except one of them is well under half the price. Thanks for watching, as always, guys. Thank you. Bye bye.